You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Well, I hate to say I told you so, but not as much as I'd hate not to. So here we are again, Florida Panthers, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I am over the moon. Welcome back to Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. I'm Andy. With me, as always, is my brother Brian. I have been beside myself all week, waiting to record this episode. Haven't had the chance. Brian and I have both been busy. I've been gearing up for a trip to Europe. He was on a work trip this week, so that's why we didn't bring the show to you as soon as we wanted to, but we were able to get it in on our scheduled day anyway. Brian, what's up, buddy?
Nothing. I'm just trying to text you the show notes.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Now we're good. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I'm here too.
There you go.
Sorry, I was being a boomer on my phone trying to crop the fucking screenshot. But
and talk at the same time.
yeah, it's a tough task. But yeah, we're back. We made it to the end. I was truly hoping for a game 7 just so I could be home to watch it instead of sitting in a hotel room by myself like a loser. But I was sitting in a hotel room by myself like a loser, so that's okay.
Well, needless to say, I'm happy the Panthers were able to close it out at home. I think all of us expected that series to go 7 games. And what it really came down to is Edmonton just kind of fell apart after game 4 is really what it was.
It really never felt like they were in it after game 3. I mean, I know they won game 4, but man, did it really just feel like it was always an uphill battle.
Well, yeah, I mean, they were fortunate enough to squeak out 2 overtime wins against Florida, but I really felt like the Panthers had control of this whole series. Even in game 1 when they lost, I really felt like this whole series was mostly Florida. And I just thought Edmonton didn't look as aggressive, as hungry as they did in the final last year. And I know they went down 3-0 early for that series and brought it back. But even still, I thought they looked far better than they did this year. And there just wasn't a team that was going to stop Florida this year is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think I kind of think after game 2, I still thought the Oilers were in it, but as we said on the show, it's like, okay, Florida got the split that they desperately needed, and then they kind of just took over from there. I mean, they go back home and I know they lost game 4 in overtime, and they kind of fell apart a little in game 4, but for most of that game they were the better team, and obviously game 3 they were the better team, and They just never took their foot off the gas, and the Oilers just never adapted ever. McDavid said it perfectly too, is that they, we kept kind of trying the same thing over and over again, which kind of felt like a shot at the coaching staff. But he wasn't incorrect in saying that. They looked a step behind every single play, and for a team being the faster team, if you look like you're a step behind, that's not a good recipe for success, because when Florida slows the game down, that's why they're so good, is if they can slow your offense down, they'll just beat you up in the corners and they'll never let you get the puck back. And that's pretty much what they did. I mean, even when there were, I guess, some kind of troubling moments for the Panthers, they always did a good job riding the ship and tilting the ice back the other way so they could keep the pressure on, and they just did a good job. They stuck to what worked for them, last season and this season, and ultimately they walk away once again with Lord Stanley's mug. So a hell of a season by them, a hell of a run by them. It's everybody keeps sharing the screenshot in round 2 with the Maple Leafs. They're up 2-0 in the series. They're up 3-1 in game 3 or whatever. and then the next panel of the meme is the Panthers, or is Barkov lifting the Stanley Cup. I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. So it's crazy how quick it turns around. But even again, when the Panthers were down in that series too, they stuck to what worked for them. They didn't try and beat any of the other teams at their own game. They just stuck to their game, and they were effective at it, I would say, in all 3 rounds leading up to the final, especially against Tampa and the Hurricanes, even the Leafs too. I mean, once they got going, they were good, but I was worried at first with how slow they started in that series. I was like, oh man, they could be cooked, but they came back. They played their game in games 3 through 7. and it got the job done. And then in the Stanley Cup final again, even when there were some troubling moments, they really never got away from what worked for them, and they just kept pressing until it did work. And they're champs again.
Yeah,
which is crazy to say about the Florida Panthers, but here we are.
I'm still trying to fathom that aspect of it, because I've said it on the last couple shows now. I've said it to multiple people this week. I just remember, back in like even 2016, when Kristen and I would go to games, and we'd be some of the only people there. There'd be less than 2,000 people in that arena, and I remember hearing him say there were talks about just relocate or sell the team or get the team out of Florida. And now they're the most dominant team of this decade, I would argue. And I will say, yes, that now that they pulled this off, they had the better run than Tampa. And
I was going to say, and this is solely for stirring the pot, but it's crazy that it took the Panthers 3 years, only 3 straight years, to have a better, more illustrious history than the Lightning.
Yeah. And you're pissing some people off with that.
Yeah, okay, I hate Tampa Bay so much.
I actually thoroughly enjoy the rivalry between Tampa and Florida.
I don't like Mickey Mouse Cup ones. Just like when in basketball and the Lakers won the championship in 2020, it's a Mickey Mouse run too. So I don't like Mickey Mouse championships. I don't like the Lightning's fake cup win over the Flames in 2004. I don't like any of their made up cups against teams in their own divisions or in the bubble or any of that shit.
But
I don't feel bad. I don't. Just like Dallas with their one cup too. Okay, cool. Brett Hull's foot was in the crease. Yeah, congratulations on your fake cup.
Look, I still have to be an advocate for them, and at least in the COVID bubble, not so much 2021, but the COVID bubble, you did what you had to with what you were given.
Yeah, they were given no choice, but the fans walk around like they had an 82-0 season and a 16-0 playoff run without any pandemics or anything.
Right.
Like, relax.
And the second one was against a team not only in the same conference but in your own fucking division.
When Kucherov gets hurt in the previous season and then waits till training camp the next season to get surgery so he can miss the whole regular season and they can be $8 trillion over the cap in the playoffs. So
which is another.
I don't feel bad.
Another argument I want to get into in a little bit. But again, I'm not, all the Tampa hating aside, I'm not taking away from what Tampa did, because obviously that's fine. But they did what they had to with the situation they were given, and they still pulled out back-to-back cups over 3 appearances. So still good. But because the Panthers had to do it with 82 game seasons, I say that the Panthers had the more impressive run. And I honestly, truly believe, as great as that 21 Lightning team was, that this Panthers team is the better team, and this Panthers team is better than last year's Panthers Cup team. Just unreal all the way around. It truly, truly was. And you've heard Matthew Tkachuk talk about it, and Paul Maurice, really the whole team. It really was such a team effort this year. You heard Matthew Tkachuk say in his interview, when you're down in the dumps and shit's getting rough, you look to one guy to lead you out of it. But in our locker room, everybody contributes, and that's why they're lifting the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, that this team is, I hate to say this douchebag phrase, but this team is built different, and that's ultimately led to their success. I think Don Sweeney is probably sweating a little bit, showing what an idiot he is, letting Marchand walk, but hey, Marshy's got another cup now, and I don't think there's a Panthers fan or a Bruins fan on this planet that isn't happy to see Marchand raise the cup.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Sweeney's sweating Sweeney shouldn't be sweating as much as the stupid ass owners of the Bruins who decided to keep him there. But that's a discussion for this summer, or this fall, I guess, depending when we do that. But yeah, for the Panthers, I mean, it's awesome. The turnaround is so incredible, and Barkov is just unreal. We've mentioned this show before. Somebody wrote in and asked a question who our favorite players were of all time, and I said mine's Patrice Bergeron, and of course he still is. But watching Barkov play the way he does, it's so eerily reminiscent of Bergie, and it kills me to say this, but I mean, you look at the career accolades now, 2 cups in a row for Barkov, and I know Bergie obviously had the Olympic golds and the World Cup as well, but Barkey is quickly, going to quickly match his resume to what Berge accomplished in this league, and it's very impressive. He plays almost an identical game. He's tough. He's a great scorer. He plays power play. He plays penalty kill. He's his best defensive forward in the league. I mean, he does everything that Patrice Bergeron did, just, a little bit later on in the hockey timeline. But it's just wild. I mean, had Barkey started the same year Patrice Bergeron did, those two would have been 1 and 2 for 2 decades as the best defensive forwards in the league. And Barkey's he's just a really good player. It's so impressive to watch how he plays, how he carries himself, how he boosts his teammate, how he yanks Brad Marchand out of the club at 5 a.m. after winning the Stanley Cup. I mean, anything Bergey's done, he's done too. So
okay, anything Bergey's done, that's good.
It's just incredible though. He really is a good player. He boosts everybody around him. I mean, it helps having a 60 goal scorer play on your line too. It really does. But the whole team, just from top to bottom, was just very impressive to watch. And I know for the Oilers and Oilers fans, it's a heartbreaking way to go, especially when it kind of felt like it really did feel like this was the Oilers' year. And then, boy, did they really just let it get away from them. To me, it's more, I would say, more disheartening than last year's Cup final loss. As emotional as last year's was, this is tougher too, because they simply just did not play well enough. And the Panthers just kept coming every single game. They were just unbelievable. So, I predicted all 4 Oilers series incorrectly this playoffs.
Yeah, well, you know what? It happens. I have to say one thing to your point that I thought it was one thing Connor McDavid said that I think fits beautifully with what you said, about how heartbreaking it is. But he said this year it's more anger than it is heartbreak. And I think that's a perfect way of putting it, because now you went through it the first time, you knew what to expect. You come out ready to go after surprising everybody all throughout the playoffs, and then you have a lackluster performance into the Stanley Cup final.
They should be angry. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially McDavid, especially Draisaitl, but at the same time, McDavid only had 1 goal the whole series. Like, the only person I truly felt showed up besides Draisaitl was Corey Perry.
Yeah, and I know they miss Hyman, and that hurts, but again, you should be ready. You've been in this exact situation. You played the exact same team last year, and you knew what it takes to be. They know what it takes to beat them. I mean, they did it 3 games in a row last year after being down 3. Like they know what works, and they just did not execute. So yeah, they should be mad. I mean, they let a golden opportunity slip away. I mean, it's not to say that they should have won or whatever, but they certainly should have put up a better fight. I mean, ultimately, I think you're right. Just the way the Panthers looked from start to finish in this series, even when it was still a little unsure after the first 2 games, the Panthers just looked so much more ready. And yeah, I understand that they've won before, but the Oilers, again, been in this exact situation against the exact same team. You need to be ready to play, and it just really never felt like they were. I thought the Panthers did a good job getting Kane off his game. I thought the Barkov line did a good job against McDavid. Like, they were about as effective as they could be. And I know McDavid had a couple moments in this series where he made the Panthers look really silly, but outside of that, I mean, he really just had nothing to do. He really just had nothing going against them. And I know a couple guys were hurt. I know Nuge was hurt, but it's the same thing on the other side. The Panthers had guys hurt. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk was basically playing as a corpse,
crippled.
I was gonna say, since the entire playoffs. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough for Oilers fans, but they should be upset. They should be mad. And yeah, McDavid's right. It's not so much the result. If like last year they put up just the best fight they could and just got overwhelmed, it is what it is. But man, especially the last 2 games, they really just got their shit kicked around. I mean, in an elimination game, you almost get shut out. That's rough. That's rough. It's kind of, for me, that's much akin to like the 2019 Bruins, where they battled with everything they had to force that Game 7. I mean, Game 6 against the Blues, I thought was one of the best hockey games I've ever watched in that final. And then Game 7, the Bruins go home and they fall flat on their face against the Blues and lose that one. Well, the Oilers kind of do this too. I mean, they fight like hell all series, but except they don't have an answer for the Panthers. And then when it's an elimination game, they just have nothing. They just get bullied from
you
start
can have
to
it.
Yeah, exactly what it felt like, just from start to finish. And I do want to say too, for the Panthers, first of all, congrats Sam Bennett on winning the Conn Smythe.
Yes,
unreal run. If the award was only for Finals MVP, it probably would have been Brad Marchand. But that's beside the point. I do want to say this real quick. Sergei Bobrovsky, I don't believe is given enough credit.
No.
Last year, he, in my opinion, if I had a vote, and why the fuck would they ever give me one? But last year, I would have voted Sergei Bobrovsky to win the Conn Smythe Trophy. And I don't want the incredible runs that Bennett and Marchand had to take away from the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky is a huge factor in the reason they made it this far. He had some. I mean, you could put together a 10-minute reel of great saves he's made just in these playoffs, and same with last year's playoffs as well. But Bob, I felt like he was robbed of it last year, and I just feel like that kind of that race between Marchand and Bennett this year, like who's going to get the Conn Smythe. I think it really overshadowed how critical Bob's play was to the team's success, because there was a lot of games. Hell, even I just mentioned earlier, Game 3 against Toronto. I mean, that game could have resulted in the series being 3-0, and the Panthers would have been all but done. And Bob kept them in it, and they got it done, and then they turned the tide in that series. And then Bob was outstanding against the Hurricanes, which, I mean, that seems to be a trend because it's the Hurricanes. But he was outstanding against the Hurricanes, and I know he wasn't perfect in the final, but, man, the last few games, I mean, those last 3 games, really, it felt like he was in the zone. And I know they lost Game 4, but I really didn't put that loss on him. I just thought he made a lot of really good, timely saves where the result could have been different. Even Game 6, the Oilers came out flying in Game 6 the first 3-4 minutes, and he shut it down. And after that, the Panthers just took over. But with how hard the Oilers were playing to start Game 6, they could have been up 2-0 or 3-0 early, and Bob just slammed the door, and then the Panthers go down and score on their first shot of the game. It's crazy. So I don't want to take away from, I don't want to take away from Sam Bennett, because just an unbelievable run, setting a record for most road goals. Marchand having the, arguably one of the most clutch playoffs we've seen in decades. Just as far as every goal he scored felt like it was, most of his goals were game-winning goals, if I remember correctly. But every goal he scored just felt like it was so massive. And if they were game-winning goals, that's probably why. But Bob's play has just been so good. And he's a guy that, he started off in Philly, then went to Columbus, and Columbus just had a lot of middling teams. And, he had the Vezina trophies there, and Columbus's best years were with him and Ned. And the Jackets, Lord knows, have their own problems with goaltending now, but he goes to Florida, and he's just been one of the best goalies in the league. And I still don't think he's talked about enough. But this is a guy now that's taken his team to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals, won 2 cups. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally now with this second championship, but you could argue is one of the best goalies of all time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it, because I was getting ready to go that route. And I mean, this solidifies it. Now I say without a shadow of a doubt, this guy's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And we talked about that before the Stanley Cup final, was that if he can get a second one, that he's a first ballot for sure. The whole thing with this whole team, aside from Bob and Bennett and Marchand, which were the 3 key pieces to this series, the team as a whole, there was so much depth on this team. I mean, everybody contributed in their own way. AJ Greer, Nate Schmidt, phenomenal job on defense. A guy who was bought out of his last contract, and then he comes here, he signs, I think, a league minimum contract, and now he's a cup champion. It's just unreal to me. This watching this team this entire playoffs, I'm just like, this is. They're on the border of dynasty right now.
I would almost argue that they're already there, and I've seen a lot of discourse on Discord, on this topic of dynasties, and are they one, aren't they one? People say the Hawks are, people say the Penguins were, the Kings, and I mean the Hawks were the only, the Hawks won 3 in that short span. The Penguins did win 3. It just was in a longer stretch. Yeah. I still give it to the Hawks though, for sure. See, I don't. They're definitely one of the top ones. By the way, I don't include Tampa in this, and it's very obvious why, but I don't. It's just this is a way different realm of sustained success, and I just don't think Tampa's there. Even if you think their Cups are legitimate the way they got there, I don't believe that they're in serious talks for dynasty. I don't think that they're better than any of the other teams I just listed. But as far as dynasties go, I mean, look at the guidelines. The Kings, two finals in 3 years, plus a conference final in between. I would say that's pretty close to a dynasty. The Hawks, you could actually probably say they are a dynasty. I mean,
3 and 6 years is
3 and 6 years, and
good.
how many conference finals? I think they were in 4 conference finals in those 6 years.
Yeah, and then 3 for 3 in cup appearances. That to me, that's a dynasty.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll give them that. And then, and really, I mean, in 2014, they're in the conference final too, and they're literally Game 7 overtime, a goal away from going back to the Stanley Cup final, which would have, had they connected the dots there, might have resulted in 3 straight finals appearances.
Yeah, but then they lose to the eventual Cup champions anyway. So, I mean,
still,
it's not like they were a lousy team.
And that's the thing, is those LA teams and Blackhawk teams were good at the same time. I mean, essentially, those were like the only teams to come out of the West for half a decade, except in 2011 when it was
Vancouver.
Yeah, when it was Vancouver, and boy, did they let that one. You talk about letting one get away. But yeah, they. I mean, both those teams are good. You could both say they're probably right at the top as far as dynasties go as well. And the Penguins, obviously their success was more stretched out, but again, they topped it off with 2 incredible back-to-back runs for their Stanley Cups in 16 and 17. I mean, both of those runs were incredible. They had to utilize both goalies. Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury were both incredible in those runs. I know Fleury wasn't the guy in goal for the finals in those runs, but he got them there when Murray, I believe, was injured in both of those playoffs. And he got them, I think he got them more than half of their wins each postseason, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, both of those teams were good. And then you look at the Panthers now, and not only is it 3 finals appearances in a row with back-to-back cups, but they come from essentially out of nowhere. They had a President's Trophy, but the reset that they had after that season with Huberdeau going out, you fire the coach, you bring in Matthew Tkachuk, you bring in Sam Bennett. Just the changeover that this team had was unbelievable, and everyone's like, well, we'll see, And then they have to fire Quenneville too, and that, or that was beforehand, but it's like this team was kind of I felt like they were spinning their tires. I felt like there was maybe a path to success, but they were still very far away. And instead they run over the entire league 3 years in a row. I think this is as impressive as any of the other teams we just mentioned, if not more.
I agree. Now, and like you said, a big part of the moment where the noticeable turnaround happened for the Panthers was when Paul Maurice and Matthew Tkachuk came into this organization. It was noticeable from that moment on. This was an organization that was on a mission, and they come up a tad short in 2023 is what it is, and they rebound nicely, get the cup last year, and now we're back to back. The things I want to discuss with you, because I'm very curious to hear your opinions on them, obviously, because I have my own as well. But as far as this offseason goes, with Marchand, Ekblad, and Bennett, we've seen the videos. There's a video out there, Bennett hammered, going, "I'm not fucking leaving," quoting Wolf of Wall Street. And there's an episode or a video out there where Brad Marchand's arguably blackout drunk, and he says to somebody, "I'm not leaving." Now, Bill Zito seems to think he can try and get everybody to re-sign there, but in my eyes, unless these guys are taking seriously team-friendly cap hits, I don't see how you can get all 3 of them. And while yes, it is possible, the Panthers have some cap space to work with. I don't know. I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Well, I'm interested to see where it goes. Certainly. First of all, I think, I think just mathematically, it literally can't work unless they take team-friendly deals. But I mean, really, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, first of all, I will say this: priority number one for them needs to be signing Sam Bennett.
For sure.
His play is proven vital to the team. He's a guy you simply can't let go. And you can make a case for all three of these guys that that's the case. But you look at Sam Bennett's age, and Aaron Ekblad and him, I believe, are the same draft class. But the role he played for the Stanley Cup run. I mean, he won the Conn Smythe. It's kind of hard to argue with that. Anyways,
in his UFA season.
Yeah, winning Conn Smythe and you're at the end of your contract is really a good way to go. And for Bennett, this is going to be the contract that pays him probably the most he'll ever make in his career. To this point, you look at these guys. Bennett, again, he's due for his first real big contract, so it's hard to look at career earnings and say, okay, well, this guy's made this and this guy's made this, but just for the sake of doing this, I mean, Aaron Ekblad is his last contract, contract that's expiring right now, is made him $63 million or $60 million, whatever the hell he's made. Yes, Aaron Ekblad, $63 million in his career already. Brad Marchand's made $72 million in his career. Sam Bennett's only made $30 million, but he's due for the contract that's going to probably put him almost to $100 million, I would think. Yeah. And so Marchand and Ekblad, it would make sense to me. And I know the deal with Marchand has always been that, well, he's never had that big $10 million contract. Correct. Well, he played in an era where the cap was so stagnant for so long that it really never worked. His last contract with the Bruins was 8 years. It paid him just over $6 a year. It was still it was a $49 million deal. Like, he didn't make out poorly there. So I do see a world where the Panthers looked at or talked to all three of these guys, but specifically Ekblad and Marchand, and say, look, you guys have made tons of money over your career. You've both made over $60 million. And you look at a guy like Bennett, who's due for his big payday. It's like this formula, this format for this team clearly works. Can we meet in the middle somewhere so we can get under the cap and re-ice this exact team so we can run it back? I mean, I think there's a path there. I think all three of these guys would be willing to take some, or at least Marchand and Ekblad. Yeah. There's just no reason to not. I mean, you've made all your money already.
And I'm with you. And that's kind of almost exactly how I'm feeling. I mean, back-to-back cups speak for themselves. And I think being that you were just on one of those winning teams, if you're Marchand, and like you said, he's never had that huge career payday. Mostly because of the stagnant cap, but I think the path to winning is going to be key here. I would not be surprised to see them all sign with Florida. I wouldn't. And honestly, if there's anybody who can get it done, it's Bill Zito. That man has been a godsend to this organization. But again, it's going to come. They're going to have to be very team friendly deals. Now, this is just my opinion. I want to point out that I know Brad Marchand is 37 years old. I got it. But this guy did absolutely nothing except make a case for himself about why anybody should want him on their team. And even if he doesn't re-sign with the Panthers, I promise he's not going to Toronto. He's actually made that clear that he doesn't want to go to Toronto. So I don't know. I think Marchand stays in Florida. I really do. I think if anybody ends up walking here, it's going to be Ekblad. And, I was listening to Spit and Chicklets, and they were talking about, but real quick, shout out Spit and Chicklets. Bringing Yandel on full-time for that show has been wonderful. He just such a
fucking RA.
Yeah. I had stopped listening because I couldn't stand RA. Keith Yandel has made me start listening to that show again, and I love it with him on there, but I digress. They were talking about, I think it was Yans who was actually saying, Ekblad's not himself without Forsling. Forsling's not himself without Ekblad. I don't fully agree with that because Ekblad was himself before Forsling was even there. So now, has it been significantly better since he's had Forsling on his line? 100% yes. But not to sound like Elliot Friedman, but I think of the three that we're talking about, I think if any of them should walk, it would be Ekblad. I don't know. I almost guarantee you Seth Jones won't be on the Panthers next season. But I think
Seth Jones has a no movement clause. The Panthers can't get rid of him unless he waives.
Well, I mean, I'd love to have him around. I mean, that's another guy I was very impressed with in these playoffs.
Yeah, honestly, I think it would behoove them to keep Seth Jones after the way he played for them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go another route with this once you're done because I want to see what you think as a guy who watches all their games.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say the Panthers made out like absolute bandits at the trade deadline. Two great trade deadline acquisitions and Seth Jones and Brad Marchand. Marshy they both slotted in so well with this team. Marshy moving down into a depth role with the third line, and that third line was just dangerous between him, Lundell, and Lusterin. And it was like a match made in heaven. I mean, that third line looked like a first line. So there's a lot of work that they have to do this offseason. And I think every Panthers fan wants to see all three of those guys back. It's just a match. Numbers are going to be the big thing here, but I think the number one motivating factor for these guys to take team-friendly deals is, hey, we've gone back-to-back now. Let's push for a third one. We're a team that's proven we can do it. We have what it takes. We're more aggressive this year than we were last year, and we still won last year. So let's see what we got. So I think I'm not going to say anything for sure is going to happen. I'm just saying anybody who's paying attention, you shouldn't be surprised to see these three guys back next year.
Yeah. Here's kind of where I'm thinking of this. And again, I don't watch every Panthers game. I don't watch most of their games when it's not the playoffs because I have my own team to watch. Yeah. But here's the way I'm looking at this. The Panthers, as it sits right now, are projected to have $19 million in cap space. And actually, it's the offseason now, so that number should be exact. Free agents for the Panthers: Brad Marchand, Tomas Nosek, Sam Bennett, Nico Sturm. Mackie Samoskevich is an RFA, but he's not offer sheet eligible, so I think the Panthers can tender him a qualifying offer, and they can probably get him for next to nothing. On the back end, Jacob Magna, who I don't believe even played, is a UFA. Nate Schmidt's a UFA. I think he's gone. Aaron Ekblad's a UFA. And then in goal, Vitek Vanacek's a UFA. And Bob will be entering the last year of his deal. Here's what I'm looking at this. I am of the belief that Sam Bennett's probably going to sign a $10 million contract wherever it is. I believe it's going to be with the Panthers. I think that just is the easiest route for him, the team, for everybody. So let's go into this assuming the Panthers now have $9 million in cap space because they're going to sign Bennett to this deal. All right, so where do you go with Marchand and Ekblad? Ekblad, you could argue if he hit the open market would probably get about 8 or 9 million. And I don't think that's unreasonable to assume that. I think that's pretty fair. So let's say the Panthers are like, you know what? We love Aaron Ekblad. We want to keep him here. We want him to be a Panther for life. We're going to sign him. Let's say they give him $9 million. Now he may even want more than that. I don't know, but let's just play hypotheticals here. Let's say they sign him to an 8-year, $9 million per year contract. To suck up the rest of their cap. Now let's look at what they have available. Now that would leave them with essentially nothing left to spend. And so they're tied to a lot of contracts, and the contracts they aren't tied to, the contracts they are tied to are all ones they want. Guys with no moves, Barkov, Kachuk, Reinhardt, Verhaeghe, Jones, and Forsling, all guys you want. So, yes. And Bob, no, none of those guys you want to move. That's your core. The guys that aren't protected, Anton Lundell, okay, well, you want to keep him. Etu Luostarinen, well, you want to keep him. Jesper Boquist, he's a really good depth player, but he only makes $1.5 million. It probably benefits you to keep a guy like that. Same with AJ Greer, Yona Gadjevich. Those guys are making under $1 million. You don't want to move off guys like that. You still need to ice a team. On the back end, Nico Mikkola is entering the final year of his deal. He's only making $2.5 million. Why would you move on from a guy who was so helpful for you down the stretch and was a huge part of your Stanley Cup run? Same with Dmitry Kulikov, not protected, but again, a guy who's been a Panther for a large part of his career and was very effective for them. I know they're going to lose Nate Schmidt too, but I think that's a hole that they can plug by using somebody in their own system. The one contract I did not mention was Evan Rodriguez. He's making $3 million against the cap. He's a very good player.
Yes.
But when you want to keep your dogs like Marchand, if they really want to keep him, I think that's the guy you move on from and you replace his cap hit with Marchand. And it's tough because Rodriguez is only 31. He's got a lot of years left in this league. But Bill Zito's good at making tough decisions, and I think this is the tough one to make because you either lose one of Marchand or Ekblad, or you keep both of them, and it has to cost you somebody you have now.
Yeah.
The only thing that concerns me again is that they need to be cap compliant. So looking at this still, even if they sign Marchand, they still need to plug a bunch of holes in free agency. Again, you're going to probably lose Nosek and Nico Sturm because being Stanley Cup champions, they're probably going to be able to pull a slightly higher salary than they otherwise could have, even though I don't think Nico Sturm really played. But Tomas Nosek definitely will. He's a well-known name in the league, and I think he could definitely get himself a few $1 million that the Panthers who would probably want to keep him just can't afford. But that's kind of the question I want to pose to you. Do you like Evan Rodriguez's play enough where you'd rather keep him and let Marchand or Ekblad walk, or do you want to see Marchand and Ekblad back even if it costs somebody as good as Rodriguez or and I don't want to start getting too crazy, but could you see them moving on from Losterinen and Rodriguez to keep Marchand? Something like that.
It's something that I don't want to see because you don't want to see guys like Evan Rodriguez is one of my favorite guys on the Panthers. I mean, he through and through, he is a Florida Panther. But I agree with you. If you want to keep Marchand and Ekblad, that's where you have to move on from. And as much as it would suck, as you mentioned, Bill Zito is great at making tough decisions, and he's usually not wrong in the decisions he makes. Obviously, now he has the resume to prove it. So while I would say I wouldn't like moving on from them, from either him or Luosterainen, anything like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it if it meant keeping Marshy on for at least another year. Or honestly, I mean, if they extend Marshy, it's going to be for the rest of his career. And same with Ekblad, I would assume. So yeah, if that's what you have to do to free up some cap space, then as someone with legitimate hockey knowledge, then I would say, yeah, go for it. As much from a fan perspective, it would suck to see Rodriguez walk. I mean, Rodriguez can go anywhere and still get a good payday down the road. Like you said, he's only 31. He's still got plenty of time left in this league. And if he continues to produce wherever he goes, like he did for the Panthers, he's still going to have a very successful career.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I talk about guys leaving and trying to find some way to replace them. The Panthers do have a somewhat rich prospect system. I mean, their AHL team is actually in the Calder Cup final right now.
Correct.
And they have a couple of guys in their system. And the only name I know off the top of my head is Jack Devine, and he plays at University of Denver. He had a really good year. I got to find his numbers, but they have some guys in their system that I think they're going to have to start seeing what they have in them. Just looking at some statistics, Mike Benning, a defensive prospect, 23 years old, but 24 points in 36 games this year in the AHL. Pretty good numbers for a defenseman. But the whole Charlotte team, I mean, they could kind of, pick out what they want. And I think they're going to need to really look at some of the defensive prospects. Cause again, especially if they keep Ekblad, you're going to need to still ice a team, and it's going to start being time to see what you have in the farm, because they're not going to be able to bring in a $5 million or $4 million depth defenseman. They're not going to have the money to do it. It's just math.
Correct.
Yeah, here we go. Jack Devine, 48 points in 38 games, 11 goals, 37 assists. Just an insane season from him. Hang on, let me see if I can pull up their elite prospects to see some other numbers. But I mean, I think if I'm running the Panthers, and it's probably good that I'm not, because I don't know enough to be a GM. But I think the priority, first of all, I think Sam Bennett is all but a guarantee. I feel like you have to operate under the assumption that you're going to sign him no matter what it takes, because he's too important to let walk. Ultimately, if I have to make the tough decision, I think I let Marchand walk and keep Ekblad. Marchand's role was so vital for them to win this Stanley Cup, but you know what? They won it without him last year, and defense wins championships, and the Panthers shut down people about as well as anybody. I think you need to keep your defensive group together that got you this far, and I know it sucks, and Marchand was an absolute vibe on the Panthers, but if the math doesn't allow you to sign all these guys, I think Marchand's got to be the guy you let go. He's the highest risk in that he's 37 years old now, and sometimes it doesn't happen with all guys, and usually with superstars like Marchand, it doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen. It can happen where all of a sudden these guys just fall off. They run out of gas, and I don't think that would be Marshy, but again, that's the risk you take when you sign a player that's that old. And Ekblad and Bennett are both 29 years old. They're in the prime of their careers. They've already won 2 cups with you. They work in your system. I think those are the guys you have to give the money to. I really do. And then you have to dip into your system and see what else is there. This Panthers success has been very impressive, and I would hate to see them make a reckless mistake just to try and keep the entire band together. It's like last season when they let Montour walk. Not a move I would have made, but in hindsight, look how effective it was. They're able to plug in the holes with their depth, and then they reload at the deadline and they make an incredible team again. I think it's a tough choice, but if I'm running the team, I think I let Marchand go.
I think you make a very good point, and Bill Zito is such a great GM, and you brought up a good point with the prospect pool. I think if you're trying to clear up cap space for this team, you have to start dipping into your minor league system and giving guys a shot. I say ultimately too, doing whatever it takes to get Sam Bennett signed, they will, and if that means that Marchand and Ekblad both walk, then that's the way it's going to be, because there's no way, no matter what they do this offseason, that they're letting Bennett go anywhere else. So, and if you have to sacrifice Marchand and Ekblad, that's just it's the way it goes.
Yeah.
But you brought up a good point with dipping into the prospect pool. I think that's your number one way to give yourself some breathing space as far as cap is concerned and signing big names. And I mean, you still got guys, you still got Nico Mikkola, you still have Gustav Forsling, who next to Aaron Ekblad is your biggest defenseman. Now, I don't mean big as in size, I just mean big as in the quality of what you're getting on the ice. So there's a lot of work that they have to do to maintain this run. And I want to point out too, remember multiple times during the regular season, I said, I don't think this Panthers team is going to be a team that runs it back. And I could not have been more wrong, especially once the playoffs rolled around. They turned it on, man, like it was nothing. And they ran over everybody they faced with the exception of Toronto. I thought they should have actually beaten Toronto sooner than they did, but Toronto did put up a fight. And I would argue that, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I truly think that Toronto was actually the best team the Panthers faced in the playoffs, if I'm being 100% honest, minus Edmonton, who kind of collapsed. I think en route to the Stanley Cup, or at least en route to the final, Toronto was the best team that Florida faced.
I definitely think you're right on with that. I think if you look at how all the series played out, Carolina never stood a chance. Tampa Bay let it get away from them. I mean, Toronto is really the only team. I mean, it helps getting a 2-0 lead to start the series is a good way to go. And I know they went to game 7, but the route they took there was kind of goofy. But I think you're right. It's really, I mean, when you look at it, if you look at it from a literal perspective, the Leafs were the only team who played a game where they had a chance to eliminate the Panthers. None of the other teams the Panthers played had an opportunity to eliminate them. The Panthers, the only game this playoffs that the Panthers faced elimination was game 7 against the Leafs, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And so, which it's funny to say, and I know Leafs fans are just hurting, which it's hard not to laugh, but it's also, I also understand the pain. Like, it just sucks that you're so close, but the Panthers are that good. By the way, too, just to go back real quick to the team structure, with Vanacek being done with the Panthers, almost certainly, they have quite just looking statistically, I haven't watched these guys play, but they have, looks like they have 4 pretty solid goalies in their system. Let's look here in the AHL. Cooper Black, 23 years old, only played 11 games this season, but a 163 goals against average and a 923 save percentage. And the NCAA, Tyler Muzelik, I don't want to mispronounce that, but I'm sure I did twice just now. At University of Connecticut, he 20 games played, 226 goals against average, 914 save percentage, very good. Over in Europe, oh God, I don't know that I could even try and say these names or the team names that they're on. We have Denis Gabdrakamanov. I think I might have said that right. 21 games played, 293 goals against average, 927 save percentage. That sounds like a guy who faces a lot of shots. Then if he's got that high of save percentage, but almost a 3 goals against, that's probably a guy who faces a lot of shots. He's 19 though. You want to give your goalies a little more time to develop. And then they have Kirill Gerasimyuk, 192 goals against average, 926 save percentage. Probably time to pull up one of these guys to play behind Bob. I have to imagine if this is not Bob's last season in the league, that it's not too far away. And it's time to start seeing what's in the farm, so that way you can sustain the success of this team. Because once Bob retires, again, I have been very outspoken about how I believe he's been extremely vital to the success. I think finding your next goalie sooner than later is going to be probably the best way to sustain that success.
I agree with you. They do have a good farm system, and I've watched some of the farm system games. Obviously, when they come to Cleveland and play the Monsters, Charlotte's a good organization too. So, and they're in the cup the Calder Cup final. That doesn't happen by accident. And you have these goalie prospects putting up NHL numbers in the AHL. So now, granted, I know everything changes once you get to the NHL, but these are guys that you have to start looking to give opportunities to prove themselves. And I personally believe this upcoming season, after the upcoming season, Bob will retire. The only way I see that not happening is if they get a three-peat. But even still, I think if you get the three-peat and you're Bob, that's the time to go out. Even I would argue even now you still go out on top. But I mean, finish out your contract. See what happens.
Yeah, he's making $10 million a year. He owes a team, I feel like. By the way, those I just realized too. I was reading the date on this Panthers prospect report. I thought that said June 5th. That was, I believe, that was back in March. So those numbers are going to be skewed because those are not full season numbers. But again, given a pretty decent sample size, a lot of the guys in their system are putting up good numbers. So it's still time. My point still remains, even though unfortunately the numbers were not correct. The sample size is there. They have some great prospects. Obviously, they do. I mean, they're AHL teams in the Calder Cup final. It's time to see what's in the system. I know we went over some hypotheticals of trying to keep all three of these big free agents, but I really think, in my own opinion, it's time you let Marchand walk. You immediately sign Sam Bennett to whatever he wants because he just absolutely proved himself. And I don't think this was a flash in the pan. I think this guy really is just coming into his own as one of the most dominant playoff centers in the league. And I know people say he's dirty, and I know he's not the embodiment of gentlemanly play by any means. But this is the guy you got to keep. And even Ekblad, too. Again, they're the same age. Ekblad's been one of your mainstays on defense for now 2 straight Stanley Cup championships and 3 runs to the final. I think you keep the guys that got you there, and to a way lesser extent last year with Tarasenko, but with like guys like Tarasenko and Marchand, they're the final pieces to a puzzle in any given year. But they're not guys you can afford to mortgage your future on.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, this is all going to come down to finances. Is ultimately what the next season comes down to. So there's a lot of work to be done this offseason, but I think we've touched on this as much as we can. And I obviously, as a Panthers fan, huge congratulations to the Florida Panthers on
100%.
2 phenomenal back-to-back Stanley Cup seasons. And it's been a hell of a ride. My wife and I have enjoyed every second of it. As I mentioned, we've been watching this team since they were talking about relocating, selling the team. They couldn't draw flies to that arena. Just to see how far this team has come is just incredible. Bill Zito, Paul Maurice, Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk, just key pieces to turning this organization around and now making them one of the most dangerous teams in the league. And it's just been an absolute gift to watch, and I'm excited to see what happens this offseason and what they can pull out for the upcoming season. But that's obviously stuff we'll have to keep an eye on moving forward. I am going to have the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup parade, which is starting right now, live streaming on my phone while we record the rest of the show. But I do think it's time that we take a break and come back and touch on some news throughout the league, if you agree with that.
Real quick, I just want to say I'm going to laugh when in like 2 weeks Marchand takes like a leagueman deal and Sam Bennett signs for 8 and Ekblad signs for 8 and the world burns down. That would be hilarious. Yeah. Congrats again to the Panthers, back-to-back Stanley Cups. And for you and your wife, I don't know if people know this or not. I don't know if we mentioned it on the show. The last 2 seasons when the Panthers went to the Stanley Cup final, the one they lost to Vegas and the one they won last year, because of outlying circumstances, you couldn't actually enjoy watching these finals to their fullest with your wife. And that kind of always bummed me out for you guys that you both love this team so much. Well, this year was not the case. You guys got to I think you guys watched all but one of the games together.
That's correct.
And most importantly, you got to watch them win it all together. So I'm very happy for you guys. And
so are we.
Yeah, I was going to say enjoy it. And hopefully, again, they can figure out a way to sustain this offseason. But yeah, you guys, more importantly than them winning it, you guys got to watch them win it together, and there ain't no better feeling than that. So congrats to you guys for getting to enjoy that, and congrats to the Panthers for, again, continuing one of the most dominant runs in recent memory. It's time for a break.
Yeah, it is time for a break. So we will go do that, and we will be back shortly to talk with you guys about some things happening around the league. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Pucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Pucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks. All right, and we are back. Thank you very much to our good friends and my fellow Panthers fans over at Xenopucks for the sponsorship of our show. If you haven't, make sure you head over to their website and check them out. Real quick, before we carry on with the show, I just wanted to read this off real quick. One of our top fans of the show, Don, wrote into the show real quick, and he just said, "Andrew, congratulations to you and your favorite team. You know, I wish it was your other favorite team, Boston. But that will be a while."
Columbus.
Okay. But before that, I'm happy for Marchand, proving he is the player I know he is. Anyway, looking forward to seeing your insight on the finals, which we've already given. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, well, you know what? If we ever get down to Texas, we'll have to go see Don.
Absolutely. And as much as you might hate it, have to go to a Stars game.
That's okay. Hey, you know what? I can do anything one time for the right cause, and going to see one of our biggest supporters, I'd be no skin off my back. So
and I should point out I
don't have to sit by the glass banger guy.
That's true. Yeah. I should point out too, Don's not just a random fan of the show. We know Don personally. Yeah. There was one time in 2015, Brian and I went to a game. It was the Bruins versus Blackhawks in Chicago, and he and his family just happened to be standing next to us. It was a standing room only game, and we were in the standing room only. And
yeah,
it was great.
We also went to high school with one of his kids.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy how all that whole day panned out.
Yeah, and so it was really fun to watch hockey with them. They're just that whole family. They're great people, and I really love that they're supporters of the show. So shout out to the Fournier family. But moving on, we still got some news to talk about, and we didn't really touch too much on the Oilers in this previous segment. Like I mentioned to you during the break, I kind of wanted to glaze the Panthers, but there's definitely some things we need to address with Edmonton. But I think I'll let you grab the reins from here.
All right, so let's take a look. So the Oilers, again, heartbreaking way for a season to end, especially as they won each round. The expectation grew higher and higher, and when they just cleaned out Dallas, it was like, oh God, they might be really doing this. And then it just fell apart. So now for the Oilers, they're faced with some tough choices in the offseason. As it sits right now, they have almost $12 million in cap space. It's not official yet, but it's expected that Trent Frederick is signing an 8-year extension with the team at $4 million per, which good for Frederick. A depth player to get yourself locked up for 8 years. I mean, as a depth guy, you're going to sign over a $30 million contract. Congratulations to him. He is a tough-nosed player. So from a rooting for the little guy kind of standpoint, like I'm excited for him. He's earned it, so to speak. But from the mathematics side of this, you're going to blow a third of your cap space on a depth player when you still have Corey Perry, who you have to make a decision on. Jeff Skinner, I don't know that they're going to bring him back. I don't think he was that vital for them. Connor Brown's a UFA over there. I think you probably keep him. Kasperi Kapanen, maybe if you get him at the right price. John Klingberg, you probably let walk as a UFA. Evan Bouchard, that's the big one, which I'm actually gonna skip over Bouchard because we have to come back to him. He's an RFA though. You look at the goaltending, Skinner and Pickard both have a year left. Neither of them makes over $3 million. But that's kind of where I want to get into the ugly part of this now. The forward group, I think they've shown for the most part, with the right tweaks, I think this is a group you can somewhat run it back with. I think on the defensive end, you need to find a way to bolster the roster. I think the forward group, you just got to kind of plug in depth wherever you can on the free agent market. Your top six is among the best in the league. When Kane's playing right, anyways, it is. But then you have McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins. Like those are all weapons. Those are all good players. I really don't think you have to worry about that for next season. It's just all about the cast you put around them, and that includes Corey Perry if he sticks around. On the back end is where it gets troublesome. You have Darnell Nurse, who's making way too much money. Matthias Ekholm, who's now 35, and I think he turns 36 before next season starts, if I'm not mistaken. It starts to become a little hazy here because they're paying so much money to McDavid and Draisaitl, as they should. And they're paying a shitload of money to Darnell Nurse, and he's on a no-movement contract until 2030. You have Bouchard now. We just mentioned they're going to probably pay Trent Frederick about $4 million a season. If the rumors are true about this contract, that's going to bring their cap space to $8 million. So let me tell you this. Bouchard, whether you like him or not, is going to sign for more than $8 million, whether it's with the Oilers or somebody else. But if it's with the Oilers, it must come at the cost of other players because they don't have the cap space. So now it makes me wonder, what route do they go? Because clearly the goaltending doesn't work, and I want to get to that too. But I don't know where they're going to find the answers here, because what we saw were the biggest flaws in the Oilers in this series were towards the end, the defense kind of fell apart. The great depth play that got them there with the play of Wallman and Kulak and Stetcher and Klingberg, it all kind of imploded on them. Ekholm looked it's so heartbreaking to say, but he looked terrible the last couple of games of the final. And Nurse has just never lived up to his contract. And now Bouchard, who actually, to his defense, I feel like has mostly proven himself as a playoff performer. I know he draws the ire of fans on a lot of nights, but he's a good enough player. He's still very young. He's still growing. I mean, he's just about to enter his prime when you really think about it. He's only 25. He's going to bring in a lot of money, but they have nothing really there around him now. I mean, going into this series, I was thinking, man, this group's pretty solid. And the Panthers exposed every flaw of this defensive core and showed that it doesn't work. And furthermore, that the goaltending doesn't work. And I don't even know where they begin to go. They don't have any money. They have two goalies who can't, and I don't want to pick on Calvin Pickard. He's a backup goalie and he was very good in his role in the playoffs. So I'm not even going to pick on him, but you have Stuart Skinner, who is virtually useless in that. I mean, games 5 and 6, he was so bad. I mean, he's just unserviceable. Almost every goal he allowed was pathetic. And I know Ekholm got turnstiled on that beautiful Reinhardt goal to start game 6. But man, Skinner was just so bad and just not even relatively worth keeping. I mean, I know he expires after the next season, but you got to find a way to move him out this summer and try anything. Bring up somebody from your farm system, do something. Because this just isn't it. But the tough part with the Oilers is I don't even know where I would start because they don't have any money. And Stan Bowman's already going out and wasting $30 million on a depth player. And again, that not to dog on Trent Frederick because he's not the problem. Go make your money. Like it's a tough world. Make your fucking money.
And he earned it.
Absolutely, he did. He did earn his contract, but this isn't the team that needs to be paying a depth player $30 million. Like if Frederick would have signed this contract with Florida or Vegas or teams that are already loaded up, then I get it. Yeah. But a team that has no cap space, they have Connor McDavid, who's going to be needing a contract if he wants to stick around. They have Bouchard, who needs a contract right now, or he will not play for them next season. They have so many glaring flaws to look at that I don't even know where I'd begin with this. Like you have to re-sign Bouchard and you have to address the goaltending, but you don't have the fucking money to do either.
Yeah. Well, my whole thing with Frederick is like as we just mentioned, he's earned every cent of his contract, so good for him. But the thing is, he can go make that money anywhere. It doesn't have to be in Edmonton. And if you're Stan Bowman, you have to understand that as a team that has no money to spend right now with big contracts you have to worry about. I say let Frederick go somewhere else because he's going to get a good contract no matter where he goes. He has that option to pretty much go wherever he wants. So I would let him go and focus, especially on Bouchard. You cannot let Bouchard go. And if you do, I'm really questioning your capability as a general manager. That's just pathetic. And as you mentioned, I don't want to touch too much on the whole Connor McDavid situation because we still got some time for that. But the questions are being raised right now. Does he even want to stay? How hard are they going to try to make him stay? Is he too far gone already? So you've got bigger fish to fry here and not any money to work with. And as far as Stuart Skinner goes, and I'm not trying to jump all over the place here, but that's what happens with ADHD. As far as Stuart Skinner goes, I saw a lot of comments on different posts all over the place. I've even heard opinions on other podcasts. The Oilers should have started Pickard in Game 7. I don't agree with that. I think in that situation, that big of a game, you go with your number one guy, which is Skinner, whether or not you agree with that. But in that situation, Skinner was the guy to start for Game 6. I understand. Yeah, he was.
He's just not a good goalie. No, you have to go with the guy that got you there. You do.
But I think, regardless of, I think the outcome is the same regardless of who you started. So in that situation, I was starting Skinner regardless if it were me.
Yep.
So there's a lot of work that needs to be done for this Oilers team. I also thought they were extremely undisciplined throughout the series, and Evander Kane was an absolute liability for this team. People are going to disagree with me, but he screwed you guys over in a lot of ways. Just a lot of undisciplined play, some shitty penalties that he took because he can't control his temper, which he's always been known for. It's not surprising, but when you're in a high stakes situation like that, now is not the time to fuck around like he did. And Darnell Nurse wasn't much better in that situation. And like you mentioned earlier, he has not lived up to his contract, and I've always thought he was overpaid. So there's just there's a lot of things,
glaring flaws, seriously concerning glaring flaws with this team.
Correct. And a lot of people are going for Chris Knobloch's head right now. And I can understand the frustration, but you have to bear this in mind too. This guy did bring you to back-to-back Stanley Cups. So, I think Chris Knobloch is a good coach, but you have to drive home the understanding that there needs to be discipline in high-stakes survival moments. And that's one thing the Panthers are good about. Especially in this series, was we'll play dirty, gritty hockey, but we know there's a science to it. They still show discipline when it's necessary, and they don't let other teams get under their skin. Edmonton, the Panthers were living rent free in their head that whole series.
Yeah, I want really quick. I want to go back to your Chris Knobloch thing. Again, I think coaching was part of the reason they struggled in this final specifically, but first of all, he's the guy that got you there. And while I think there needs to be some tweaks to his coaching, I still think he's a good coach. This was his second season in the NHL, and both runs have got him to the Stanley Cup final. There's some growth obviously needed if he's going to coach a team over the hump, because you're right, he didn't adapt, and he was just out-coached in this final. So I understand McDavid's frustration. I understand the team's frustration, fans' frustrations, whatever. But this is a guy who's still coming into his own as an NHL coach, I should say.
Correct.
And so there needs to be room for growth. You have to allow the guy who's shown he can get you there to continue to grow with the team and get better. All my concerns with this team are management related, as far as who the GM is, first of all, because he has not done a lot of great for them. I know the Wallman pickup and the Klingberg pickup looked good for a while, but again, against the best team in the league, it wasn't even close. And I know they're missing Hyman and so on, but financially they're in a really terrible spot. You have McDavid, who is arguably the most skilled player in NHL history, who may walk away from this team if they can't commit to building a solid roster, and they keep trying to run it back with the same subpar talent. And I don't know, man. I don't even know where to start. I want to see the Oilers do well, not because I'm not a fan of the team or anything, but it's you want to see McDavid go and get a championship, and it's just hard. It's you almost think it has to be with another team, because this group is there's nothing in the structure of this roster, with all of the no move and no trade contracts on this team. There's nothing in the structure of this team that leads me to believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, they'll be any better off than they were this last year. I feel like this year or last year were their years to do it with this group. And going forward, I just don't think there's any room to wiggle. And again, McDavid's making 12.5 now. Well, Draisaitl just signed for 14. If McDavid extends there, he's going to be at probably at least $16 million. Right. And I know the cap's going up, but the Oilers, again, with this roster structure, it's just not going to be good enough, even with two of the best players in the world. And so I start to get more concerned as I look at this team. Even while we're having this conversation, I'm scrolling up and down on Puckpedia, and just the more I scroll, the less I have faith that they're going to be able to sustain any amount of success. I'm really starting to buy into the idea that this was their last chance to do it with McDavid and Draisaitl, because they're not going to have any fucking money. Again, they got to extend Bouchard, and that's going to suck up a lot of their free cap. And make no mistake, if McDavid wants to extend there, they'll trade the whole team to keep him. But again, there's just not a solid enough roster construction here for them to do this with this group. And again, even if there was up front, their goaltending's fucking awful. So I guess to wrap things up on the Oilers, like, it was a good season. I was thrilled with their playoff run for the most part. I was pleasantly surprised because I think we all had them dead to rights against LA. And you know what? They just kept proving everybody along the way, and I'm happy they did that. But, man, they got to the final and immediately erased all of that by just getting their asses kicked.
Yeah, I don't know. I was impressed by them until the Stanley Cup final, when I just thought they looked flat the entire series. And yeah, you can argue they won 2 games, but they squeaked out.
I don't want to say the entire
overtimes.
series, because game one they were a mood. The arena was a mood the whole game. In game 2, when they came back and tied it, I'm like, okay, those were good games. Yeah, they were. And after that, then absolutely, you're right. It fell off a fucking cliff. Even though they won game 4, like that game, they didn't play great. They just had a good 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever.
And then Draisaitl gets a good bounce in overtime.
Yeah. And, they said the same thing of Marchand after game 2, but I'm like, look, it wasn't even really a lucky bounce. It was a shit goalie. I mean, it was just a goofy nothing play that, it is what it is. But I think now I'm more concerned about the Oilers now than I was 20 minutes ago before we started talking about them, because pulling up their Puckpedia, and I think I might have accidentally said cap friendly a couple times. That's my mistake if I did. But pulling up their Puckpedia page, there's just no room. There's no wiggle room here, and they got a lot of guys. They have to sign these guys if they're going to be any level of competent, and I don't think there's room there. I think Stan Bowman, especially if this Trent Frederick deal really is 8x4, I think they're in it. I think they're really in some deep shit here. Yeah,
I don't know. It's already hard when you're against the cap ceiling, just generally speaking. But when you got big contracts to sign, and you're giving them to guys that you don't necessarily need to keep in Trent Frederick, like I said, that guy can go anywhere and be successful. I loved him when he was with Boston too. He's a good gritty player, and I like it, but he can also score. So I don't know. If I were the GM, I'd be letting Trent Frederick take a hike and seeing what I can try to get done with my goaltending and get Bouchard. I would get Bouchard signed first. And then
go ahead.
And then I would focus on goaltending. But even with goaltending, you don't have a whole lot of options here. I mean, honestly, at this point, their best bet's to dig into the farm system and see what you can make work.
Or see what's out. And I don't know who's going to be a free agent. Actually, we just mentioned earlier, Vitek Vanacek probably not staying in Florida.
Bring in John Gibson.
That'd be sick. But they have to pay him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know there's been talks maybe about moving on from Arvidsson, but again, he is in the last year of his deal, so it probably makes it easier to move for the player and teams on both ends of a trade. But he's got a no move clause. If he doesn't want to leave, he doesn't have to. Henrique, same thing. And I can't believe Adam Henrique's 35. Again, no movement clause. You got a lot of these guys tied up, and you're not in Kane a modified no trade clause, which if you could find the right partner, you maybe even think about moving on from him. You're not moving Draisaitl. Obviously, you don't move McDavid. You don't move Hyman. You don't move Nugent Hopkins. Like that's your core 4, and this is certainly a better core 4 than the blue and white team out east.
Real quick, not to cut you off, but since you mentioned his name, I just want to throw this out there. It is very obvious to me, as I think it should be with everybody, that Ryan Nugent Hopkins was playing injured.
Oh yeah, he was banged up. I forgot what they said he had, but yeah, he was hurting. And
I mean, it showed. He was not himself at all the entirety of that series. So very obviously he was playing injured, and that in and of itself is a huge hit to that team.
Yeah. And again, I know Zach Hyman being hurt, like it was a drawback. I don't think it would have been enough to push them over, but it stinks that he wasn't a part of that final. I would have liked to see him go. He's such a fun guy to watch play. But again, with having to re-sign Bouchard, they're really just in a terrible fucking spot right now. And I'm sure they'll do what they need to do to get him signed, but they're just running out of money, and it's going to result in them signing crap guys at league min deals who just need a place to play. And that's not going to be good enough to win a cup. So we'll have to see what the summer brings. Obviously, we'll get a little more clarity over the next few weeks as we move into the draft and free agency, and we start to see where some of these guys go, and we can more easily paint a picture. But for now, again, Bouchard, by the way, is offer sheet eligible. So if he makes it to July 1st without a contract, I'd be buckling up, because there are teams who can offer more money than the Oilers can afford to pay. If Trent Frederick actually signs this 8x4 deal, there are teams who are going to have enough money to sign Bouchard to an offer sheet that the Oilers can't match.
Yeah,
and that should be very concerning.
I was going to say, I mean, like, that has to be your number one priority right now. Whatever it takes, you have to figure that out before you address any other issue with this team. And there's a plethora of issues to deal with, but that's got to be priority number one right now. And if they don't address that, then I have zero confidence in this team. Yeah,
exactly. But by the way, not for nothing, but I mentioned an offer sheet. You know who's got $26 million in cap space and is the Oilers' biggest rival and could pluck Evan Bouchard from them on an offer sheet? Is Calgary.
I was just going to say Calgary. So
Calgary, and again, a team, and we'll talk at length about Calgary in the offseason, because they're in an interesting spot.
Yeah,
like with guys like Parekh coming through the system, and
they're slowly building right now too.
They're working on something there, man. With all that money, they don't have to re-sign anybody super big right now. Maybe obviously Morgan Frost, Connor Zary, they want to get to deals, but those aren't guys who are going to make you spend $9 million a player or anything extravagant. They really have the room. I think they'd be a perfect. I honestly think they'd be a perfect contender to pick him up. The one thing Calgary is going to have to worry about, obviously, regardless of who they sign, is that Dustin Wolf's up after next season. But we'll get to the Flames later on. I was just scrolling through teams' cap spaces and saw the Flames. I'm like, oh my God, that would be hilarious. So we'll see. I'm honestly, like I said before we started the segment, when we were at break, I was thinking the Oilers are still in an okay spot, but they got to make some tweaks. But now I'm genuinely concerned that they might have walked themselves into a pretty dark corner here.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes this offseason.
All right. Well, that was a lot. I just want to say, what a hell of a hockey season, first of all, before we get into the news. What a hell of a hockey season. It felt like it went by really quick, and I think moving and uprooting my life might have had to do a little bit with that. But
yeah, you were busy this year, man.
Yeah, I was. We're going to be busy to start the next hockey season, too. The last 3 months of this year are going to be chaotic for us again, but
yeah, well, you and I got the next, I would argue, like the next 6 months, you and I got
honestly, this whole we do. It's going to be hectic. I'm almost glad our summer break for the pod's coming up, because we got shit we got to do.
Hey, but it's all good stuff that we're dealing with.
It is all good. Yeah, nobody should be concerned. It's just we're busy, but life is life. We got traveling to do, and thankfully we're not moving across the country this year. That's fun.
Yeah,
but there's just a lot going on, so this summer break is almost going to be needed for us. But yeah, what a hell of a hockey season, just start to finish. There was so many fun games. The Four Nations tournament was wildly successful. I don't think even the league could have envisioned how successful it was. It really put the league even more on the map than I think it has been in the last few years. And now we have the Olympics coming up next season. But these playoffs were great. I couldn't believe that. How few game sevens there were, and I shouldn't say how few, but I felt like there would have been more game sevens with how competitive it was. I can't believe there were no sweeps in these playoffs. I figure you're always good for at least one or two, but there were no sweeps. Every series had at least a little drama at some point in it. Maybe other than the New Jersey and Carolina series. Yeah, but even then, Jersey won one of those games too. So it's like at some point, everybody who had a team in the playoffs had an iota of faith that their team could do something. Nobody got swept out of the first round. There were some great series just throughout the playoffs, but the season was just so fun. I'm sad it's over, but I'm glad. I'm kind of glad too, because I think we're all, most people were all a little burnt out. We're ready for a summer break to refresh our brains and enjoy some warmer weather and so on.
Sorry, I unplugged my mic.
That's okay.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great hockey season, and I'm happy I was proven wrong because after last season, I was like, I don't think this hockey season will ever be topped. And this year blew last year out of the water. And thankfully for me, I got the same result, so I'm happy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think winning again always helps. But no, I just think in general, I think the overall product was just as good, if not better, this year. And it's a good sign for the league. It keeps getting better. The cap's going up. These TV deals are getting signed. It seems like they're not far away on a new collective bargaining agreement, which will be huge because hockey fans have a dark past when it comes to lockouts. And so I think we're all ready for this new deal to be signed so we don't even have to think about a strike in the future. But let's move on and get to some league news and some housekeeping stuff. Most of this isn't news anymore. It's all happened, I believe, at least 2 days ago at this point, but it's all happened since our last show. TJ Oshie officially retiring from hockey. Kind of sucks the way he went out, but you know what? The guy's a Stanley Cup champion, has one of the most iconic moments for USA hockey ever with the shootout wins, or the shootout win against Russia in the 2014 Olympics. Just a great heart and soul player, one of the best American hockey players of this generation. So it kind of sucks that injury and his body breaking down has forced him into retirement, but a career to be proud of for sure, and almost certainly a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody out there, any true hockey fan out there that doesn't love TJ Oshie. And, it's one of those situations, much like, I'll use Joe Pavelski as an example. One of those guys everybody loves, and, you grew up watching him, and it sucks to see him go. But, I mean, he had a hell of a career. He's got a Stanley Cup. It's just, he was a household name, and it's always tough to watch the guys you grew up watching that you love go, but it's a part of life, man, and it's a part of hockey. It is what it is. But I can only wish him the best in his retirement. It's well deserved and a hell of a career. Absolutely.
All right, so yeah, for TJ, it kind of stinks he's got to retire, but he got his championship, and that's all that matters. And he got to win it in front of his dad while his dad was still around. So
yes.
You can't ever take that away from him, and it's just awesome. It's definitely a story with a happy ending, at least.
Correct.
Chris Kreider going to the Anaheim Ducks. I did not put down who the Rangers got in return for Kreider because it doesn't matter. Because I believe, first of all, I think it was just picks and stuff. But the return is insignificant, probably to most Rangers fans. Chris Kreider will leave the New York Rangers as their all-time playoff goal-scoring leader and their third highest regular season goal-scoring leader. A guy who felt like he was probably going to be a Ranger for life. And it really sucks. I really feel like the Rangers are just one of the most piss poorly managed teams in the league in the last 18 months or so. And it's too bad because, last season they were in the conference final. It was a team that, for all their follies, had done everything to get to the right point, and they came up short. And then this season it just fell off.
Yeah, it was bad.
All the stuff with Trouba, and now this, and with Kreider, it was like the worst kept secret in the league that he wasn't going to be there forever.
Well, with Kreider going to Anaheim, I just want to say this: whether you're an Anaheim fan or not, over the next couple seasons, watch out. Anaheim is going to definitely be a force to be reckoned with. And I remember you and I both remember a time when California teams dominated this league to an extent.
Oh, dude, everybody used to hate people used to complain like the California road trip shouldn't be a thing. These teams are too good, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And now two of them, or at least this past season,
like a bye week now.
Awful. Yeah, I would say it was a bye week with a half-ass effort against LA. Although I shouldn't say that LA was the best home team in the league this year. Okay, yeah. So you had 2/3 of a bye week, pretty much. It was pretty much rolling in there, beating the crap out of the Ducks and the Sharks, and then having to fight for your fucking life against LA. So having to play one game hard out of 3 ain't bad.
Correct, but the Ducks are going to heat up now, and it's time to pay attention.
It is. So the Ducks, who again have Kreider on their, here we go. He's making 6.5 against the cap. That's crazy. Chris Kreider, I believe, is with his move to the Ducks, he is the third highest paid player on the team, behind only Troy Terry, who's making 7, and his own former teammate Jacob Trouba, who's making 8. So I think that's hilarious. The Ducks are far from a perfect team, but they do have $32 million in cap space going into this offseason. And if they really wanted to, with the right level, especially with Coach Q coming in there, they could really bring in a bunch of big names. I know the free agent market isn't super sexy this offseason, but it seems like they're one of the teams that's in on Marner. It seems like they'll spend whatever they have to get their team back into relevancy again. And the Sharks are kind of in the same situation, but for right now, the Ducks, it's like Kreider goes there. He bolsters a young team that's working on becoming a competitive team. And I shouldn't say a young team because a lot of the guys on Anaheim, it's split pretty well. You're either 22 years old or you're 35 years old. Like it seems they're right down the middle, but there's a lot still to be done for the Ducks to become a very good team. But I do think that, again, bringing in a guy like Kreider who knows what it's like to play for good teams. He's played in a Stanley Cup final. Like this is a very good hockey player who still has a little bit of gas left in the tank. I think that could be really good for the growth of this group moving forward. And in the next 5 years, I really see Anaheim being a powerhouse in the league again. Mm-hmm. But for Kreider, again, for the Rangers and Kreider, it's too bad that it never worked out there where they could win a championship together. But Kreider will never be forgotten. I am certain his number will one day hang in the rafters of Madison Square Garden, which is a heavy thing to say. That's the most iconic arena on the planet, and a lot of legends have played there, but his number is going to be up there one day. I know they didn't win a championship, but the franchise all-time goal scoring leader in the playoffs, he's going to be up in the rafters one day.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
So we'll see how it goes in Anaheim now. We'll see. This draft could be huge for them too. They have a lot of cap space, and I'm pretty sure they have some pretty decent draft capital too. They could really make some big moves here to solidify this team. So we'll have to see where it goes. But for now, again, Kreider leaves the Rangers, and I don't think there's really any Rangers fans that are thrilled about the way their teams are being managed.
And you shouldn't be. It's sad. No, it's disappointing. It's one of those things, like, we're not mad, we're disappointed.
Yep.
So it is what it is.
All right, another retirement. Nick Bonino retires at 37. He's going to join the Pittsburgh Penguins coaching staff. Obviously, a huge part of those back-to-back Penguins Cup teams on the iconic HBK line with Eglin and Kessel had that famous Bonino overtime goal in the playoffs. Great player, won a couple championships, earned his keep in the league, was never a superstar player, but was a household name for the back half of his career. And so good on him. He found a job right away. And I think it's perfect that he's going to go and coach in Pittsburgh after having the most successful run of his career with them.
Yeah, you couldn't script a better fit for that.
Yeah. So nothing big there, but just, again, wanted to give him congratulations. Again, 2 Stanley Cups back-to-back. An influential part of both runs, too. That line was just like – we talked about the Luostarinen, Lundell, Marchand line. The HBK line – those runs was just as good as Lundell and Luostarinen.
Right.
That line was just as good, if not more iconic. They could have been deployed as a second line, but the Penguins were so deep they weren't. Like the Panthers were good at deploying their third line as a second line because of how good they were. The Penguins couldn't do that because you had Malkin's line that was shooting the lights out too. So they were just. That's why those Penguins teams were so good. They had 3 top 6 lines essentially. It was just unbelievable. They just killed you all over the ice. And Crosby made one of the best lines in the league with Sheary and Brian Rust. And just like, how the hell do these guys keep going? And then, yeah, man, it was just impressive. Those Penguins teams were a nightmare to play against.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's get to this now. Let's talk about the Blackhawks. Not a team we talk about too much because since this show's inception, they really haven't done much. But in the last couple days, the Hawks buy out TJ Brody, which I forgot he even played there. And then they acquired Andre Burakovsky from the Seattle Kraken, I believe. And then it was just announced the other day as well that they signed Ryan Donato to a 4-year, $4 million a year contract, which, you know what? I don't hate it. First of all, I think it's a team-friendly deal, but the Hawks are still clearly working on their rebuild. You need to ice an NHL competent roster. I don't want to say caliber because they're now almost one of the worst in the league back-to-back years, but Sorry, I had a hiccup there. But yeah, you need to ice a roster ultimately, even in the dog days of a rebuild. By the way, the Blackhawks are currently in possession of Shea Weber's contract, which is hilarious. This is the final year of Shea Weber's contract, even though he hasn't played in like 5 years or 4 years. But yeah, you need to ice a roster. I think Ryan Donato has been a good fit there. He seems to be among the fan favorites, which in a team that's struggling with the rebuild, you kind of got to take what you can get. But with Brody gone too, I mean, God, there's just so many directions this rebuild can go. I will commend the Blackhawks for one thing, is that they're giving all their young guys a chance now, which sometimes you see teams get a little too, they get a little too gun shy about wanting to play their young guys in a rebuild because they don't want to stunt their development. And I think you can fall into that trap. I think you can, but I think the Blackhawks, whether it's because they don't have a choice really or not, they're giving all their young guys a shot. And I still have said kind of from the beginning that I think they're doing a good job keeping guys there who are regular pros in the league, guys who know what the day-to-day life's like, who are going to get these younger guys acclimated to the game. Whether or not they take them to that next level of being a dominant player in the league, they're going to get them accustomed to this lifestyle. And maybe in the future, you bring in those guys who have won before. And I mean, Burakovsky actually is a guy that's won before when he was with Washington. So I don't hate it. I don't hate that they keep Donato there. Again, you keep one of your team's top performing players there 4 years, a super cheap deal, especially with the cap going up. And who knows what's next for the Hawks? I mean, Spencer Knight, if he can, he's in the final year of his deal and he's an RFA, but if he can get back to where he was before things kind of went south with the Panthers, they might have something there. They really might. And again, all of these young guys are kind of wild cards. You don't know what you're going to get until you see a sustain or a large sample size. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with Bedard. They're really high on Oliver Moore, who I'm still pissed that they got. But he's got a really high ceiling as a center. Frank Nazar, I think, again, is going to be another guy there who's going to be there for a long time to come. So there's a good light at the end of the tunnel for this team, but they have so many different ways that they can get to the end of the tunnel. And I'm kind of excited to see where they go with this.
Yeah, I like you said, there's a lot of ways to go, but there's just so much work that has to be done, and I don't want to sit here and speculate on a team that has such a long road ahead of them. But I mean, Connor Bedard's your guy you want to build the team around. So,
oh yeah,
we could do a whole episode on the Blackhawks. That's my issue, right? There's just too much there that needs to be done. They've got a very long road ahead of them. So I guess we'll just see how it goes.
Yep. And they have good draft capital too. And they have about $22.5 million of cap space. So again, it would be not only, I think, unnecessary, but it'd be difficult to speculate where they go just because there's so many different routes they can take this, whether it's moving draft capital or moving a good prospect to bring in a couple good players. You don't know. You don't know.
Right.
And, but we don't talk about them a ton on this show. And the fact that they had 3 transactions over the last few days, I figured it was at least worth mentioning that they're starting to tweak. And you know what? I'm giving them credit for being proactive and not waiting till the markets dry up to make the moves they want to make. You know, again, Donato is a guy, had a pretty good season on a really bad team. You lock him up, team friendly deal. You give him trade protection so he feels like, okay, he doesn't have to worry about uprooting his whole life. You buy out TJ Brody, who I, again, didn't even know was still playing. And you bring in Burakovsky, a guy who's won a Stanley Cup. So they give themselves a little more cap space with the buyout and the Burakovsky trade. They don't give themselves more cap space with the Burakovsky trade, but they buy out Brody, get rid of his cap hit. I think he's only under cap for $3 million next season and $250,000 the following year. So we'll see where the Hawks go. But it was definitely worth mentioning since again they just made 3 transactions.
Yes, sir.
All right, moving on. There's Ottawa Senators too. This one was fascinating to me. We won't spend a ton of time on it, but they lock up Fabian Zetterlund, 3-year deal, $4.275 million per year. 25 years old, pretty good young player. I don't think that he's maybe, what's the way to put this? I don't think he's going to hit the ceiling that he had when he was drafted. I know, again, I know the Sharks were pretty high on him when they got him. but I don't think his development has maybe panned out the way he or his now 2 clubs he's played for would have maybe have hoped. But again, you take a low risk deal. The Sens still have $10 million, almost $11 million in cap space, with most of the group they had there last year still locked up. So you take kind of a low risk move, you keep a guy in, and it's like, hey, if he can turn into something great, now you're not paying him anything, and you have a couple of years to roll with the punches and see what you got as this cap continues to go up too. So I think it's a good move for the Sens. It's nothing overly complicated. It's just doing what you can to make your team better, or at least keep it as good as it's been.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Sorry, text message.
No, you're good.
All right. Sorry, what was the last thing you said? I'm sorry.
No, I just was saying that the Sens, it's good that they keep the team. Again, it's a low risk move to keep your team and make it either better, or at least keep it as good as it's been. They don't have a ton of cap flexibility, but again, most of that roster is going to be the same as it was this past season. So I think it's a low risk move for first of all, for the player. I mean, he's going to make over $10 million the next 3 seasons. But for the team, cap's going up. You don't have to pay this guy a shit ton, and it's not going to hurt you when you need to, make extensions on your big contracts.
Right. And, I mean, they're a team that they're pretty much on the cusp right there. I mean, they made the playoffs this year. So I think you don't want to change anything too drastically. If it's me, I'm kind of wanting to ride what they had this year into the upcoming season and see what you can make happen there and make little adjustments along the way. You don't want to make any kind of drastic moves during the offseason for a team that is really starting to figure it out. So you want to slowly plug away at things here.
Yep. So we'll see how it goes for the Sens. Will be interested to see what they do with their offseason, because again, even though I thought they were just way overwhelmed by the Maple Leafs this postseason, it was their first postseason run as with this group. And for what it's worth, I thought they did at least hold their own, given that none of these guys had really been in this situation as part of this group. So we'll move on here. One more contract I want to get to before, technically 2, but one more that's officially signed. Matt Duchene signs with the Dallas Stars. He extends 4 years, $4.5 million a year. Matt Duchene is 34 years old. This deal, I would assume, will take him to retirement. So for the Stars, we talked about the Oilers being in a tough spot, and the Stars kind of are too. So obviously they are going to go through a coaching change here this offseason. Stars currently sit with $2.75 million in cap space with the Duchene deal now signed. The Stars don't have a first or a second round pick in this draft, it appears, which is not good for the whole building. And again, the Stars are still a very talented team, but you have $2.75 million. Jamie Benn's a UFA. Do you let him go? I personally would. I think we've seen his best years are behind him. If Getty Dadonov is 36 years old, you probably let him walk. He's a UFA. Mikhail Granlund, I think, is going to command too much money, and Jim Nill's a smart GM. I don't think he wants to marry a contract like that. That's going to leave him strapped because, and we mentioned this before, the Stars defense is going to need some help. It's right now it's Heiskanen, Lindell, and Thomas Harley and a bunch of guys. I know they liked what they saw out of Leon Bichelle this postseason. But you have Matt Dumba making 3.75, which is way too much money for Matt Dumba. Ilya Lyubushkin making 3.25, which is too much money for him. You got that's $7 million in contracts for guys that are terrible. And I believe Nils Lundqvist was actually injured, so he didn't play much, but he's on such a cheap deal and he's still very young. So nothing to worry about with him. But you have Dumba and Lyubushkin who are sucking up $7 million, and really you have less than $3 million. I mean, those are guys that I'm sure Jim Nill will do his damnedest to move out of town so he can try and bring in one more defender. I think with their forward group, I think they're comfortable enough kind of where they're at, where they can just plug in and fill in their depth, because their core group of guys, Rantanen, Sagan, Hintz, Robertson, if they don't move on from him, which I'll get to at the end of this because this could change this entire outlook. But Duchene, that's a good enough group of players. They clearly, they what are the 3 conference finals in a row now? I know it hasn't worked out the way they hoped, but
Well, now they don't have a head coach, so.
Well, yeah, which I don't think it's the worst thing is that they're going to move on from.
No, that's honestly that's the best thing that could have happened to them this offseason. So,
but they're up against it. They have essentially again $7 million in contracts for defensemen who are absolutely terrible. I don't even know that Matthew Dumba played the last couple games of their playoff run, but Lyubushkin is not a good defender, and they're paying him money. And again, you have to ice a team. You do have to ice a team, but for the love of God, a team that is this close to being, essentially probably number 2 in the league to the likes of like Florida or maybe Vegas, and even Vegas, I think we'll talk about this offseason as it's starting to slip away from them. But the Stars have an opportunity here to make a big splash. And now I want to get into Jason Robertson because the Stars have $2.7 million in cap space. They have $7 million in contracts between Dumba and Lyubushkin, which I am almost certain Jim Nill will want to move on from. And he's a good GM, and those guys don't have trade protection because, again, Jim Nill's a good GM. He doesn't give trade protection to crap players. I think he'll try and move on from them, and that would put them over $10 million in cap space, which I think will allow them to go out and sign a big fish to try and bolster that defense even more. But then that would kind of leave them with no cap space after that to sign depth guys. And that's where the conversation around Jason Robertson has slowly started to creep in. What are they going to do with him? He's currently making $7.75 million. He's got 1 year left. He'll be entering the final year of his deal. He's an RFA after this coming season. And then the following year, he's UFA eligible if he signs only a 1 year extension. I think the writing is kind of on the wall here. I've said purposely in the last few minutes said that Jim Nill's a very good GM because he is. And I think he's a guy that recognizes that he's on the cusp of having one of the most dominant teams in the league. And that sometimes you have to make an extremely painful decision. And you look at what Bill Zito did with letting Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar go. And sometimes you have to let some of your better guys go so you can address your team's weaknesses. Sometimes you must lose a strength to address a weakness. And I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, I started hearing the rumors about it. And at first I thought it was bullshit, but looking at their cap situation, I mean, they could, if they're able to move on from the 3 guys that I've mentioned here, Dumba, Lyubushkin, and Robertson, I mean, that frees them up. That frees them up almost $15 million in cap space on top of the almost 3 they already have. That right there gets you your big fish free agent that you want to find, which I would assume would be to plug in on the defense. And then it leaves you probably at least $9 million, $8 million to go fill in your depth everywhere else. And they have a somewhat decent prospect pool, at least from what I've seen watching Texas Stars playoff games. It seems like there's enough there for them to fill the gaps here and make a good team. So, I mean, I'd love to hear, and like from a guy like Don who watches the Stars, I'd love to hear what he thinks about moving on from a guy like Robertson, because yes, he's an incredible player, but he's not as good as Johnston. He's not as good as Hintz. And he's not as young as Johnston either. Johnston's only 22. Christ, that guy's going to be in my nightmares for the next 15 years.
Yep.
But this is a really good team, and you can't move on from Sagan because even though he's making a shitload of money, he's got a no movement clause. You're obviously Rantanen's a key piece moving forward. Hintz is a key piece moving forward, and I know Johnston doesn't have trade protection either. But he's first of all, he's a center, and you don't want to move on from a guy like that. I think the writing's on the wall here. I think again, Jim Nill's an outstanding GM, and settling for less is not in his repertoire of GM decisions. I think he's going to I think I can see him making the tough decision here to move Robertson out. You get a good player potentially in return, or you get draft capital back, which they could use to rebuild their farm system. But you could get some draft capital back, get yourself another bona fide player, even if you want to. You could make the hockey trade. I mean, he could go out and get a defenseman he needs for Robertson as well. But if he doesn't, you recover draft capital, you recover cap space, more importantly, if you're going to go the free agent route. At first, I really didn't buy into this, but looking at what they've got now, I can see a route here where the Stars move on from one of their bright young players.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the only correct move there is. As you mentioned, Bill Zito proved it. Sometimes it's a tough decision, but you have to move on from certain guys in order for the betterment of the team and moving forward. And as Bill Zito proved, that could be the move that makes or breaks your team. So and look, Robertson's a guy who can go anywhere and be just fine.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's a really good player.
So while it would be a blow to the team right out of the gate, yeah, but I think moving forward, like I said, you've got some other things you have to spend money on here, and that's just going to set you back. So I think moving on is the right thing to do.
I think, yeah, and I think for the Stars, first of all, more importantly than any of these players, they need to go back to their old jerseys. But they do, man. I just saw another picture. It was a Medano the other day. I'm like, Jesus Christ, why did they get rid of these jerseys? Anyways, and look, I'm not saying moving guys like Dumba and Labushian is going to be something you can do at the snap of a finger, but everybody needs right shot defensemen, and they both are right shot defensemen. Everybody needs guys that can come in at a relatively cheap cap hit. And relativity, anyways. I mean, they are relatively cheap cap hits, but these guys are still overpaid players because I think they both suck. But they're guys that, again, they're warm bodies you can put on the ice, play on the right side, the right shots. Matt Dumba can run a power play if you need him to. I know there's certainly more attractive options, but you have they're guys that can play in the NHL still, and that's the bottom line. So I don't think there's an easy deal there, and I don't think there's even a trade deal that you really win by moving those guys. But I think the victory you take is that you get $7 million in cap space back, plus whatever you get from Robertson. I think the better route for them is to trade him for another bona fide NHL player already, preferably a defender. But sometimes those trades aren't always there. So again, if you move him and you can get cap space and draft capital, that's how you rebuild through free agency. There is a clear path here, I think, for the Stars. It's just a matter of what route Jim Nill wants to go. But I have no doubt in my mind he'll make the right choice, because I feel like 99% of his decisions he's made as general manager have all been in the best interest of this team. And that's why you never see people calling for his head. And it's guys like the coach or the players who are always these scapegoats, because I don't think any of the misfortune this team's had is because of who's in charge. And I say that despite the fact that I've dumped on their lack of properly loading up their defense. But I still think he's a good GM, and I still think he's going to make the right choices here. I know, again, these contracts weren't the sexiest decisions, but I don't see a way that this team doesn't dump off those two crappy contracts and again move Robertson to get the cap space they need to fill the gaps to make this team the championship team that it probably should be.
Look, I'll just leave it at this. I will be surprised if that's not the route that they take.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. Time will tell. The draft is in a couple days, I think. Let me look that up. Oh, wow. Big basketball trade. I just looked at my phone. Sorry. This isn't a basketball show. It's a football show.
Yes, sir.
When is the draft? Now, I'm almost anxious because I'm like, when the fuck is it? But again, as we get closer to the draft and as we go through the draft is this coming Friday and Saturday. As we get closer, I'm sure we'll see more trades this week. And I'll probably have to do a post-draft show because you're going to be on a vacation, so you won't be here for the next couple of shows. I'll have to do them solo. But yeah, you know what? When we get to July 1st, I think this team's going to look quite a bit different, but I think it's going to be for the better. Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, we all know what the path is here. It's up to them to follow it.
Yep. All right, let's move on now from the Stars. Kind of a sharp left turn, but Mason Marchment, speaking of the Stars, goes to Seattle. They get some draft picks back in return. Again, I think most Stars fans probably wanted him there, but in a world where you need to be cap compliant, you need to make moves. And again, we go back to making the tough decisions as well. And that's one of them too. He's kind of I don't really like Marchman's play style. First of all, he's a big diver, but he's a tough-nosed player. He's a guy that if he's on your team, you usually like him on most nights. But again, you got to make those tough decisions sometimes for the betterment of the team. And I think this is one of those. Again, I talked about how they were hurting for draft capital. They still kind of are. They don't have a first-round pick this year or next year or a second-round pick this year. So bringing in more draft capital is good because they're going to need to rebuild this farm system, as a lot of the guys they've brought up through it are NHL mainstays now. So you need to replenish the system for the future, and making a tough decision to send out a somewhat fan favorite is sometimes what you got to do. So, but for the Kraken, they get a guy who's a tough son of a bitch to play against. He's an irritating player to play against.
And he's good buddies with Brandon Montour.
and he's really good at scoring timely goals. I'll give him credit for that. A lot of times he'll score a goal in a game, and you'll be like, of course it was fucking Marchand. Of course it was fucking Marchand.
Yeah.
So he's good for that. He is good for that. So I think that'll help Seattle, who again is kind of it's still in a weird transitional period where it just doesn't feel like they have any kind of established identity. So we'll see what happens with the Kraken going forward, but we'll talk about them more in the offseason, as I mostly wanted to look at that trade from the Dallas side of things. So, all right.
Close it out with one
last signing we're going to get to, and I think this should make everybody's heart happy when they see this. If you're a fan of this game, a true fan of this game, you'll appreciate the contract cannot be registered till July 1st, but Jonathan Toews will be returning to the NHL. He will be signing a deal with the Winnipeg Jets to what will likely close out his career. I believe was it a 3-year deal? Yeah. And all kind of performance bonuses and incentives in there. This deal could actually end up having a pretty high cap hit for an uncertain player essentially, but it's cool, man. We all kind of thought Toews was done after his tenure with the Blackhawks. He goes on this long recovery journey. I think this was his third. Yeah, I think this was his third year.
Yep.
Not playing. So to see him come back, it's pretty exciting. I know a lot of people wish he would have gone to the Blackhawks or, something like that, but he gets to play for the team he grew up cheering for, so to speak. And it's cool. I mean, it's one of those feel-good stories, and I'm a big fan of storylines and things like that. So it's good to see him come back, get one more crack at playing with the league. And you talk about this is like medium risk, very high reward, because the contract could end up paying him quite a bit of money against the cap. But if you get even 70% of what Jonathan Toews was, boy, that really puts a whole different perspective on what the Jets are capable of.
Well, to further that point, there's it could cost him a lot of money, but that means he's doing what he needs to get those performance incentives, which means he's playing out of his mind. He's playing to the caliber he's known for. Let me
clarify on that. His performance bonuses are all games played bonuses. They're not scoring. So if he put it this way, if he plays at least 60 games this year and the Jets make the playoffs, his contract will be, instead of being $2.5 million, it's going to be like $5.5 million.
Which is still fine. I mean, you're getting your money's worth at that point.
It's still not terrible. And honestly, the Jets do have a lot of cap space, but again, they got to make a decision on Ehlers. And they got to make a decision on Gabe Vilardi, which I think he's going to probably re-sign there. It's just about finding the right number. Their back end's locked up. Obviously, they have one of the best goalies in the league. I still think they could use a little assistance. Apparently the Jonathan Toews contract is only a 1 year. I swear to God, I saw somewhere it was a 3-year. But regardless, it's a 1-year deal for now. And the Jets still have $24 million in cap space. So they could be a team that's pretty active this offseason. We'll see. But I do like the idea of bringing in a guy who's captained 3 Stanley Cup teams.
Yeah.
And again, hometown kid. Now that I see it's a 1-year deal, it is a low risk move. So I swear to God, I saw somewhere else that it's a 3-year deal, but Puckpedia has him at 1 year, $2 million with potentially $5 million in bonuses if like they go deep in the playoffs and stuff too. So we'll see.
I think it's good not only for him and the Jets. I think it's good for the whole league. I don't think anybody wanted to see Jonathan Toews go out the way he did from Chicago. And it wasn't like it was toxic or anything. It's just a guy with that legendary of a career. You want to give him a proper send off.
Yep.
And he didn't get that when he left Chicago, but you have to give the guy credit. He went out on this big soul searching recovery mission. And he said, I will play in the NHL again. There's still some gas left in the tank. And, God bless him. He's following through on it. And like you said, it's a good low risk move for Winnipeg. You sign him for a year. And if he lives up to the hype, sign him for a couple more years till he retires and carry on and give him the proper send off he deserves, But the guy is, aside from the quality of play he gives on the ice, he's such a good guy, and he's a proven successful leader. He's exactly the kind of guy that any organization should want on their team. And the fact that he gets to play for his hometown team, the team that he grew up watching, is just, I can't think of a better way for someone to go out. So I hope he has success while he's with Winnipeg. And Yeah, it's just really, really good to see him back in the league.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just kind of crazy that he's coming back, but I mean, it feels like it's been 1,000 years since he's played, but it's only been 3.
Yeah,
but yeah, again, this is a pretty low risk with a very high potential reward. So, you know what? If it doesn't work out for him, then he can ride off into the sunset. He can sign his 1-day contract and retire as a Blackhawk after the season's done. And
right.
And and if it does work out, great. Maybe he signs another year after this and just finishes out his career like normal. And who knows? But the Jets are in a pretty prime spot. I mean, I know there has to be a decision on Ehlers, and if he stays, great, and if not, it just leaves them with even more room to bring him and more free agents. And I think they'll get Morgan Barron and Gabe Vilardi locked up at some point. They're both RFAs. Even Rasmus Kupari, I could see them getting him on a pretty cheap deal too. And I mean, we could still be talking about the Jets having, $13-14 million of free cap space after this is all said and done. I think the big thing for them is going to really depend on what happens with Gabe Vilardi. I could see them slightly overpaying, but at the same time, he's an RFA, so you really don't have to because the team's got full control. And he is offer sheet eligible, so they don't want to drag this out too long, but I see them getting a deal done quickly. This Jets team is not one to fuck around with now. I'm really hoping Taves is back to what we know him to be, because boy, with this, again, it just changes the whole outlook of this team. Just
Correct.
One guy of that caliber can it's unreal. So we'll see how he does. I mean, we have to see him hit the ice. He just signed the contract, or unofficially signed the contract 2 days ago. He agreed to the deal, whatever. So we'll see what happens. But man, the Jets are in a really good spot. I didn't realize how much cap space they had either. So exciting times in Winnipeg, potentially. So we'll see what happens with them. Let's talk about what's coming up for our show here, because we are getting pretty close to the end of our podcasting season for this year. You are going out of town for a little bit, and you will not be back until our final show of the season. So after this one, we have 3 shows left: the 29th, the 6th of July, and then the 13th of July. And the 29th, I'm going to do a show next week myself, just to react to anything from the draft, any trades that fall out of that. And then I'm going to do a show by myself on July 6th, as well as we'll have most of the results of free agency. I assume most of the big fish will be off the market by then. And so I'll react to kind of what's happened from that. And then on the 13th, you'll be back by the 13th. And so we'll do one final show on the 13th to, again, address any free agency things. And we'll kind of put a bow on this season of our podcast, but definitely want to make sure you're on for that one as well.
Yeah, I will for sure be back for the final episode of the season. My wife and I are going to Europe for a couple weeks, so I will not be around for that. But Brian, as you all know, is perfectly capable of running the show on his own. He'll take good care of you guys, and I'm looking forward to talking hockey with you one more time for the season when I get back. And I gotta say, it's been a damn good season. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to doing the show again for our 3rd season. So we won't have a start time for the 3rd season. We'll keep you guys in the loop for that as well. To stay up to date with the show and everything, make sure you follow us. I always tell people to follow us on Instagram or on Facebook, but I don't really deal with the Facebook side of things. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, though, at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. If you'd like to, you can follow us on TikTok at Fresh Ice Pod. I haven't posted a ton on the TikTok page lately because we haven't really done any video episodes. Just due to time constraints and things we got going on. It's easier to do audio only lately, but I will be better about that in the future. If you'd like to send us questions or give us your input on things, you're more than welcome to email us. We love getting listener emails. You can send us an email to freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com or contact@freshicehockeypodcast.com. Either one of those work. And we'd love to hear anything any of you have to say. We'd be more than happy to read it on the show. If it's not something you want us to read on the show and it's just an opinion you have, obviously let us know as well. Or you can send us a direct message on Instagram. We're in the offseason now. Panthers are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I'm over the moon. I'm excited to see what the offseason has in store. I'm excited to see what happens during free agency. I will be gone, but I will be out of the country, but I will be keeping an eye on all of that stuff. And like I said, Brian will take good care of you guys while I'm gone. So, Brian, it's been a fun season. So I'm very much looking forward to see what happens from here on out.
Yep, and I mean, don't write us off into the sunset quite yet. We do have one more show we get to do together, so we get our last day of school in a couple of weeks, in 3 weeks from today, in fact. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with this draft. I mean, I know this isn't the most exciting free agent class, but given with the cap going up and a lot of teams in transitional stages and a lot of teams being on the cusp of trying to get to that next level, I'm really thinking we're going to see an extremely active trade market over the next couple of weeks. So I'm bummed that we can't do these next two shows together, because I do think there will be a lot to talk about, but we'll be able to kind of revisit some of the high points of this when we do our last show in a few weeks. So either way, I'm very excited again. I'm very happy for you guys, you and your wife, that the Panthers have now won 2 Stanley Cups in a row. And hell of a hockey season. And I'm excited for you guys that you get to put a bow on this season yourselves by not only celebrating a Stanley Cup championship, but getting to go to Europe for a couple of weeks. So you guys have a ton of fun over there, and be safe. And we'll get back on the mics together on July 13th when we put a bow on. But for our listeners, I'll be back with you guys the next couple of weeks. So let's buckle up, because we got a very bumpy ride ahead, I'm thinking.
It's going to be a fun one. So like Brian said, buckle up. All of you listening, I love all of you. And I will talk to you guys in a couple of weeks. As for Brian, he will see you in the next week.